We are live in studio and have had an epic day today. We have been discussing our troops in Syria, China, the border wall, and the National Guard. We just had a special segment on the freedom of speech and First Amendment issues, both on college campuses and at home. We've discussed BLM overreach, and we've had Dominion Energy on to discuss, among other things, the great extraordinary opportunities that the ACP is presenting, as well as Russian gas in Boston and what that means for our nation. On hold with us now is our next guest, our next featured speaker, Anthony Shaffer. Anthony Shaffer is a retired U.S. Army Reserve Lieutenant Colonel. He is well known for his claims about mishandled intelligence before the September 11th attacks and for the censoring of his book, Operation Dark Heart. He is a fellow and vice president for the London Center for Policy Research and a contributor to the Fox News Network. You can see him often on TV commenting on current affairs. As a side note, I was in the Fox Green Room in Washington, D.C., and I just happened to look over on the table next to me, and guess whose book was on the table? Anthony Shaffer. Anthony, welcome. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Martha. Thanks for having me. Good to be on.
So, first of all, thank you so much for your service and your sacrifice to our country. When at the end of this segment, I'm going to ask you to let our listeners know how they can get your books and how they can keep in touch with you and find out more about you. There's been a lot of talk in the news about Syria and President Trump's announcement to withdraw the 2,000 United States troops who are in Syria as soon as possible. And I think there's a lot of misconception about the status of Syria now, where status is, how stable it is now, what's left to be done to stabilize and reconstruct the area. And I was hoping that you could, speak to that and about deploying our National Guard. I'm sorry, about withdrawing our 2,000 U.S. troops that are there.
Sure. Well, look, the Pentagon's been successful because essentially they've implemented something called the by, with, and through strategy for dealing with the region. General Joseph Dunford, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, essentially was faced with a very significant challenge, trying to find a way to win the war there without having to put American troops, in large numbers on the ground. And I think he did it the correct way by finding partners and proxies we could work with. One of those being the Peshmerga, the Kurds, have been a very effective partner, as well as our training of the Iraqi military. This has been something that's been important and critical to our success in the region and within liberating Iraq from ISIS. So with that said, once we were completed doing that task pretty much, and by the way, just a quick plug here, if people want to see how this was done, National Geographic did a series called Chain of Command, which ran in January to February, which showed how this happened. It laid out the war and how we were able to defeat ISIS in Iraq. With that said, now we've moved from Iraq into Syria. And President Trump's position is, and I agree with this, is that it's not our job to be the policeman of Syria. It's not our job to separate and try to help them do their work to bring their own stability. So again, what we're doing primarily is trying to find a way to partner with individuals and groups at the local level who can help bring the stability. Again, avoiding the consequences of having a large land army, thousands and thousands of men deployed, as we've done in the past, because the moment we deploy a large force, we become the target. So again, I believe General Dunford has done the correct thing of finding partners, and that's the preferred method of going forward. And again, I agree with President Trump. We do not need to put a large number of troops in. With that said, I think there's things we can do to be helpful, and I think that's what President Trump is asking the Pentagon to do, is be helpful, just not be the main force that's conducting the military operations to bring stability.
Right, and I guess, from my perspective, and I want to know if you know specifically what's left to be done to stabilize and reconstruct after liberating from the Islamic State in Syria? Like what exactly is left to be done? If you know what needs to be done specifically, but I think there are wealthy Arab countries, Arab allies that really need to take over and pay for what's left to be done, and to rely on the United States to do everything is not acceptable. And we have a President Donald J. Trump and this administration that is putting America first, and that means it's time to bring our troops home. And as an aside, I have a veteran here in the studio as well. I have Van Hardenberg with me. Van, if you'd like to say hello to our guest, you both, I'm sure, can know how what it feels like to bring the troops home, right? Because you've both been brought home and brought home safely to the United States, and I'm sure that Van, you agree that our troops need to come home.
Absolutely, and I know Colonel Shaffer feels the same way. He basically just said that there really is nothing to be gained from putting the precious lives of our American soldiers on the line unless we really have significant U.S. policies that we need to enforce by using that method. So absolutely, I can't wait to see our troops come home.
And also, as far as what's left to be done, Anthony, what is left to be done there?
Well, three things. First, you have to bring back governance. The primary condition which resulted in ISIS's growth is the lack of governance. And whether we agree with President Assad or not, the president of Syria, he is the president. And what happened to get us to where we're at now is that elements of the Obama administration, working with President Erdogan in Turkey, armed al-Qaeda elements in Syria. Totally insane. And those elements decided that, hey, instead of trying to challenge the Syrian government and do something hard, let's go into Iraq and take over and create our own caliphate. That's a secondary consequence which was completely predictable, and we helped create. And that is the United States through the Obama administration. So first off, just stop meddling in the activities of other nations, which can result in this secondary horrific consequence. So that's something I think, again, it's not our job to fix, but we can be helpful in trying to bring governance back. Second, we have to continue to affect the defeat of ISIS. ISIS is not dead. They're just morphing. They're going to different locations. We don't need a large number of American troops to do that. We have to use special operations forces and really good intelligence, which Mike Pompeo is bringing back over to CIA. And again, I have great confidence in Special Operations Command under General Tony Thomas. So I think they're making progress. Third, as your point, we need to bring in our Arab allies to help solidify the victory. We've put forward the idea of an Arab NATO, something called the GRSTO, the Gulf and Red Sea Treaty Organization, which can effectively serve the purpose of bringing stability to the regions which need to be addressed. And again, that should be funded by our allies. As President Trump's been very effective in pointing out, our NATO allies have not been funding as much. They're doing better now. And same thing with the Middle East. You have rich nations which should very much be in the forefront of funding security efforts to bring stability. So those are the three things that need to be done.
And there are those that want to criticize our president and this administration for wanting to bring home our beloved troops, those 2,000 men and women. What do you say to them?
Well, look, this is not a war we're going to win by brute force. This is a chess game, not a checkers game. So the idea of simply, putting our folks forward without clear objectives, and this is what, let me be a little bit blunt here. I understand that one of the things that led to H.R. McMaster's firing is his constant drumbeat of wanting to put more troops in. And the president basically said, as we've talked about, no, we're not going to be deploying a large number of troops there. It's not going to get us what we want. And so I think the answer is there's other better methods we can use to bring stability to Syria other than putting our men and women in harm's way.
Great. Well, how can our listeners get your books, and can you go through your books and just give the title and what they're about, and how can they get in touch with you? Where can they buy them, and provide your website and all of that other good stuff? And thank you so much for being on. We'd love to have you on again soon.
I'm happy to. Yeah. Anyway, 2 books. Operation Dark Heart was my first book, New York Times bestseller. Covers my time undercover in Afghanistan in 2003, 2004. ostensibly watching the tipping point of what happened where we went from winning to losing there because of wanting to essentially engage in nation building. And then my second book, The Last Line, is about the southwest border and the challenges there. It is a novel, but it's written very realistically to kind of capture the challenges and issues down there. And for those folks who want to get in touch with me, I'm, as you mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Operations for the London Center for Policy Research, londoncenter.org. And you guys, anybody wants to look me up can look me up via the website.
And what does the London organization do? What does it do?
Well, Dr. Herb London is our boss, and we basically focus on all hazards, all threats regarding national security. We focus on everything from energy to counterinsurgency, and we assess and advise on those issues.
Great. Thank you so much for being on the show, and I look forward to seeing you soon, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you.